How did she feel when he said, "Baby, let's sell those diamond rings"?
Not good.
I wondered if she was actually on board with that. Good to be with you this morning. It's Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi. Appreciate you joining us. Happy to welcome our first guest this morning. Some people call him Lieutenant Colonel. Some people call him Representative. Some people call him Dad. Some people just call him Rodney. He is Rodney Hall, represents District 20, part of DeSoto County, Vice Chair of the Military Affairs Committee. Representative Rodney Hall, good morning to you.
Richard, it's good to be with you. Good morning. How are you, my friend?
Quite well, thank you. I hope you and your family have a wonderful holiday weekend coming up. Any big plans? Are you we got to get around the grill and have a big family gathering? Going anywhere? What's it going to be?
Well, I'll tell you, Richard, I don't know about down there in central Mississippi, but the first priority is to try to stay cool. It has been a hot summer, and trying to beat the heat is definitely top of priority.
Yeah, I'm just about ready to trade the rain though for heat. Like if we can take a little bit of a break on the rain, we'll just endure the heat for a little while and make do. So at least get the outdoor activities that way. So
no, you're spot on.
You took office in you took office in 2024. So a couple of sessions in your hip pocket now. I'm curious, when you think back to when you decided to run for state representative, how the first 2 years have been different than maybe you imagined they would have been.
Yeah, no, I'll tell you, Richard, it has been a whirlwind of experience. Of course, I started in legislation working in Congress for the 1st Congressional District on staff up in D.C. And so when you talk about the legislative process, I did feel pretty confident coming in and having some kind of experience, not just with the rules, but with the procedures and how things go. But I'll tell you, it's different, and it's supposed to be different. So Washington's not like the state of Mississippi, and we do things somewhat differently. I'll tell you one thing that I have been very fortunate, or one thing that I really enjoyed, is the speed at which we can attack issues in Mississippi for Mississippians. You know, the whole joke in D.C. is you spend 4 years up there just to try to pass, you might pass a post office bill, but, down in Mississippi, you can identify challenges and you can identify opportunities and you can act on them pretty quickly if you work with your colleagues. So that part has been fun.
That's interesting perspective to me, because I think there are a lot of people that say, man, they've been talking about, getting rid of the income tax for years now and have gone through different iterations of that, or the school choice conversation just seems to drag on and on and on. But I suppose the perspective is, if it takes 2 or 3 sessions to get something done, that is that's pretty quick compared to the pace at which things move in the Capitol in D.C. from time to time.
No, you're absolutely right. And, one other thing is, you don't want wide, big major changes every single year. You want to take a nuanced and, a incremental approach when it comes to addressing some of the challenges. One thing that I learned in the Army is, normally when things come up to the highest ranks, right? So if you're a commander and things are coming in front of your desk, that means they couldn't be solved at the local level. That means that it required a little bit more deliberation. And so, sometimes we get it all done in one year. Sometimes it takes a couple iterations to get a bill perfect. But the goal is that we're always moving forward and we're always inching towards success. And I think we've been able to do that, at least in my 2 years in the House.
It's interesting to me, as someone who represents DeSoto County, there are unique challenges that your constituents face that lots of other parts of the state of Mississippi don't face, simply because of the size and the growth rate that we've seen in DeSoto County over the last decade. I mean, I guess it's longer than that, but just this massive growth in the last 10 years. How does that change maybe your approach to the legislative process and what you advocate for, compared to a colleague that maybe is from one of the smaller towns in Mississippi?
Yeah, that's a good question, Richard. I try to take a perspective where I'm always looking at my district first. I'm always looking at my county. Of course, those are the folks that elected me and sent me down to Jackson to represent them. So I want to make sure that DeSoto County equities are always first and foremost when I'm down in Jackson. But then I also take a nuanced approach for the entire state. I've been traveling this state for quite some time, both before I got elected, when I was working in Washington, and even when I was in the Guard. I mean, I've been I was a company commander down in Poplarville. I'm always down at Camp Shelby, the Mississippi Gulf Coast. I lived down there for a year prior to my second deployment. So I have spent a lot of time all across the state, and it's not the same. But with that said, as we continue to work on equities here in DeSoto County, which is my number one priority, I'll also look and make sure that we're not having second and third tertiary effects that negatively impact the rest of the state of Mississippi. Because ultimately, we all will rise together. So as the Mississippi Gulf Coast does well, or as DeSoto County does well, I also want to see Central Mississippi do well, also the Delta. So we have different unique challenges all across the world. But I'll tell you what, I think we're doing a lot of good things in the House, and we're getting after those issues.
You certainly are in a county where public school is a big deal. You have so many people that have moved from the Memphis area into DeSoto County specifically because of the school district. It is insane to see the growth and the number of the high schools that are there, the number of big high schools that are there that almost jump just to 6A, 7A right out of the gate.
Yeah.
With that growth, I know comes challenge, and then there are other challenges within DeSoto County. What do those look like for you? What are your constituents most concerned about in DeSoto County, just kind of on a day-to-day basis?
Well, number one is public safety. And also keeping our economic, keeping our foot on the economic gas. It's no secret that we are literally 1 mile away from Memphis, Tennessee. And Memphis has its own unique challenges when it comes to crime and public safety. And I've been very impressed with.
Well, that was said.
Not only
you said that about as mildly as you could possibly say it.
Yeah, well, I try to be somewhat kind to my neighbor up north, but they have some real challenges up there. And my hat goes off. I sit and talk with our police chiefs. Of course, we just got a new police chief here in South Haven. I talk with Olive Branch, but then also our sheriff, and they're really. They're on the front lines making sure that DeSoto County stays safe. And that's important. When you talk about not only people and residents moving down, we have a ton of influx coming in from Shelby County that are trying to flee that crime. And they want safe communities. They want good schools, but also jobs. When you have entrepreneurs or when you have businesses that are looking to relocate or to establish a footprint somewhere, they want to make sure that when they shut their doors at night and they lock up their shop, when they come in the morning, that they have something to go back to, that their windows aren't broken into and that all their stuff isn't ransacked. And so public safety always remains the number one issue and a pacing threat that we keep our finger on the pulse on when it comes to DeSoto County. But then, like you said, infrastructure is a big thing. We have so many people up here in DeSoto County that all of our challenges, all of our opportunities seem to be somewhat expensive. Another one that we're really focused on is the DeCrua matter. And I want to give a kudos to Senator Roger Wicker and Congressman Trent Kelly. I know they have been doing their part up there in D.C. on our behalf to make sure that we can secure the funding to build this wastewater facility that came out of litigation against the city of Memphis. But we're doing our part down here as well. Our supervisors are working hard on it. My delegation in Jackson, we have been beating the drum on it. We're trying to make sure we're securing the funding for it. But you're absolutely right. Our challenges are very unique. You talk about schools. Hernando, they're getting ready to open up a new high school. And I want to say that they might be maxed out already. And this is a larger school. So the growth is incredible. The challenges they're real, but the opportunities are there as well.
I think about the makeup of DeSoto County, and for most counties in Mississippi, you have one city and then a bunch of communities. And that's not the case in every county, but generally speaking. In DeSoto County, it's Hernando, Olive Branch, South Haven, Lake Cormorant, Lewisburg, and all of them are growing. And I probably left somebody out in terms of that. And so you have all of these city governments that have to kind of work in conjunction with each other as part of the county.
Yep. Conservative leadership matters. Electing folks at all levels of government matters. I look at the cities that I represent, Olive Branch and South Haven. You look at Hernando. You look at all of our cities with strong conservative leadership, and they're competing against each other, right? And that creates their own challenges there, but they're all doing remarkable things. I mean, if you just drive down, I drive my district every day. I still knock on doors in the off season so I can stay engaged with my constituents.
Good for you.
And I tell you, man, there are new cranes every single day, so it's good.
We're going to continue our conversation with Representative Rodney Hall on the other side of this break. We'll talk a little bit about the legislation he was involved with, and I want to hear a little bit more specifically about your military career. We'll let the people of the state of Mississippi get to know you a little bit better. Mornings with Richard Cross, Super Talk Mississippi. Back after this. Welcome again, Mornings with Richard Cross, Super Talk Mississippi. Representative Rodney Hall from DeSoto County is my guest this morning. He's vice chair of the Military Affairs Committee and has got 2 years in the books now at the state capitol in Jackson, or at least 2 sessions in the books, I guess I should say. Talk to me about your role on the Military Affairs Committee and where some of the focus is from a legislative perspective on that.
Yeah, the Military Affairs Committee is very near and dear to my heart, being a soldier. I'm coming up on 21 years of service myself. Of course, my dad, he did 25 years, so I at least got a couple more before I get ahead of him. But, my connections across the state and being in that community is very important. We have really tried to kind of reform what the Military Affairs Committee does. A lot of the times it becomes a, kind of just like a Veterans Affairs thing, but I think we need to be a little bit more forward thinking and look for other opportunities as we continue to work within that committee. One bill that we worked on feverishly was the Strong Act, and it was the strengthening troop retention for our National Guard. This is kind of all across the country, but recruiting and retention has been a challenge to make sure that we're keeping our ranks full so that we can be prepared to defend our nation and defend our state. And so that bill, it had, I want to say 95 or 96 co-authors on it. We passed it in the House, but it got held up on some challenges. And we really need to relook at that next year. We need to give our National Guard leaders the tools that we can for them to be able to fill our ranks.
You are a lieutenant colonel. You talked about your military service. I'm just fascinated by your perspective as you were watching, like the rest of us, and reading about the operation that our men and women underwent just a week or so ago in terms of the bombing of the nuclear facilities in Iran. The precision, the number of people that were involved with that, the stealth that was involved. What did you think as you were watching and reading about that? That's unbelievable.
I mean, is it? Yeah. I mean, you got to think. You had pilots from the homeland, from the United States, hop on a flight, fly across the country, and drop a bomb on a size of on a target so precisely and hit the mark and made it back home safely. I mean, you think back to our greatest generation during World War II. When they were dropping bombs over there, a lot of them were in a lot more peril. It was a lot more risk. And, you had a lot of folks do missions somewhat similar on a smaller scale, but they didn't make it back home. And so when you look at our technical advantages, the asymmetry that we have when it comes to our ability to bring firepower, to bring the fight to the enemy off of our shores, but on their homeland, that's just incredible. I'm extremely proud of the men and women that were all involved in that operation.
We've gone through times in our country's history where the support at home for the military was not what it should have been. I think specifically about kind of the end of the Vietnam years. And honestly, in recent years, there has been a degradation of the military. And one of the things that we have heard people at the national level, Pete Hegseth in particular, talk about is, a return to lethality, getting rid of some of the policies that were more that were less merit based, and focusing on just putting the best fighting force that's out there. From your perspective, as somebody who has spent 2 decades in the military, are we in a good place right now with the leadership?
We're definitely getting there. All the reforms that they have put in place have been extremely positive for our ranks. I'll tell you, when I chose to join the Army, one, it was because my dad was a soldier. I wanted to be just like my dad. But when I picked the particular job that I wanted to do, I wanted to be an infantryman. And, my mama, she must have cried for probably a week. She wanted me to be an engineer or an attorney for the Army. But I said, no, man, I wanted to be a grunt because I wanted to be with the best. I wanted to lead the best. And I wanted to know that if I was having to fight in some far off distant land, that the person to the left and right of me were the absolute best. I wanted to be with warriors. I wanted to be with leaders, folks that believe in lethality, believe in being strong and getting after the mission. And so us abandoning all these woke policies that the Biden administration put in there, I'll tell you, man, that stuff, it just overloaded our armed services. The amount of crap that they had to deal with just to get to the battlefield was incredible. And so us reversing course and getting back to what really matters, putting first things first, is doing wonders for our ranks. And that's happening all across the country.
All right, you've talked about your dad a couple of times. We got less than a minute to go. When he retired, what was his rank?
So my dad was a first sergeant. So, I'm an officer, but I always say if I don't know what right is, I at least know what it looks like because I was raised by a first sergeant. I'll tell you, our NCO corps is what really separates us from everybody else. And so I love our NCOs.
I love hearing you talk about wanting to emulate your dad and follow in those footsteps. Representative Hall, thank you for your service both in our military and now in the legislature in Mississippi. I think the future's bright with leaders like you, and I look forward to more conversations with you moving forward.
Hey, thank you, Richard. It's good to be with you. Y'all be safe on the 4th.
Thank you. Same to you. Representative Rodney Hall, District 20, DeSoto County. What a good guy. Look forward to continuing to visit with him. We're back after this.